There we
Hello,
go.
everybody. Welcome to ShareNet. My name is Yazan, and joining me today we have a special guest, Mark. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. So we hear a lot about you here at RCD, and we'd like to get to know you. So I'm going to be asking you a series of questions to hopefully get to know you better and have a good understanding of what you do here at RCD. So to start it off, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah, no problem. I originally am not from British Columbia. I grew up in Ontario, St. Catharines, Ontario, which is not quite sort of in between Toronto and Niagara Falls. It's closer to Niagara Falls than it is to Toronto. But that being said, kind of grew up in St. Catharines, and after I went to a university in my hometown called Brock University,
Right.
and when I finished my first year of university, I got a summer job at General Motors. So St. Catharines, one of its primary companies is General Motors. They have, back then they had, I think, 3 or 4 plants.
Right.
And so I got a job at one of the bigger ones. It was a foundry engine plant. So 15,000 employees worked there.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people. And due to some family situations and things like that, I found myself in kind of a little bit of a hard times. And General Motors then offered me a full-time job, which was nice. But one of the stipulations in them hiring me was that I had to continue my studies at university. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing both, working full-time and going to school. And in the end, I started going to school actually full-time too. So I worked steady nights, then go to school during the day.
Right.
So sleep was being deprived, but it all kind of worked out. When I graduated, I was transferred from St. Catharines to London, Ontario. So I went from working in automotive foundry to locomotive with trains.
Right.
And
Wow.
there I kind of started my career off in operations. So I was in charge of a business unit, they called it, at General Motors.
Mm-hmm.
And after working there for a few years, I was to be transferred out here to British Columbia to work in their distribution center. Unfortunately, several weeks just before, say, leaving, some things changed,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually had said that they would have to cancel that offer. But at that time, my wife had already moved out here. She's a school teacher.
Right.
She, had a job. We had already, put in our, leaving notice for our apartment. So things were in motion. So I ended up leaving General Motors and moving out here in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So since that time, I've worked in a number of different operation facilities, low tech, high tech. So that's kind of manufacturing, or high tech is electronics, componentries, and things like that.
Right.
I've worked for companies in that are established, and I've worked for startup companies.
Wow.
And lots of great experience that I took on within operations, gained a lot of different experiences. And then about 11 years ago, I had an accident that
Mm-hmm.
then actually saw me kind of on a path of needing several back operations, and ultimately landing me into, permanently requiring a wheelchair to get around. And then that kind of limited me to actually not being able to work per se in the companies within manufacturing. So I kind of shifted my gears to more of, teaching, instructing. So now I'm a full-time instructor at BCIT. I do a course too at Langara also. So I'm in the area of operations, supply chain management, inventory management, those kind of things. So that's kind of a little bit of a background of me. You can see as I've kind of gone along, I've had to sort of make some changes, adjusted, and that's been sort of my MO of my existence, of trying to adapt to the ever-changing world, which is going to be an interesting question as we get into sort of a pandemic question, but we'll wait for that later on.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. It seems like you've had a lot of changes and you've adapted to those, and so that sort of brings me to the next question, and which is sort of when did you join RCD Board of Directors? And the second part of the question is, what is your current position at the RCD Board and duties?
Okay, so I have to think about this. I could be actually wrong on this. I want to say that I joined RCD about 4 years ago. Ella's the better one for me on timing, because time does go by quickly. And so I've held a couple of positions at RCD. Initially, I was came onto the board as a member, and then after our first AGM, I then became the secretary, and after I finished those duties, most recently I'm now the board treasurer. So that's my current role that I hold at RCD.
Right. And can you tell us about some of the duties that a board treasurer is in charge of, just to give the audience an understanding of what a board treasurer does?
Sure. So essentially, a board treasurer is, think of that as a looking at the financials for the organization. So I'm not per se doing any of the day-to-day kind of transactions or anything like that go on in any form of business. And for those that might be listening and are watching this, one of the things is sometimes people, when they think about numbers, they start to get all nervous, and they kind of like tune that out. But even in our day-to-day lives, we have things that we have to do in the form of money, right? Even a simple task of, say, going grocery shopping, you have to make sure that obviously you have the necessary funds in order to buy what is it that you're going to buy. Absolutely. Yeah, you could put it on credit, but then at the same time, do you have the necessary funds? So those are kind of the things that I'm kind of looking at a higher level, to making sure that for our RCD, that we're kind of on that right path that we've kind of laid out, and following on that money side.
Right, great. I actually, before this interview, I wasn't actually too sure what a board treasurer does myself, so thank you for letting me know.
Okay.
What do you find the most challenging about being a board treasurer?
Well, I'm not by education or anything a full-fledged accountant, although at university and that I have taken a number of financial courses, and with my experience, I've had to rely on understanding or getting to understand the financial things. So some of those challenges is trying to kind of foresee upcoming events, planning for upcoming events, and then financially trying to set things in place that are going to meet kind of those objectives down the road. So that's like anything, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree.
Yeah.
And kind of on the other side, what would you say, what is it that you find the most enjoyable or beneficial about being a board treasurer?
So board treasurer, or that also just being a member of RCD, is that meeting people. I love to engage with people. It's a challenge, being a board treasurer. That's definitely a challenge. On a month-to-month basis, when we're meeting for a board, it's part of my duties that I have to kind of discuss how are things looking at currently, what do I project forward, trying to communicate that to the board. So some people might find that very challenging. It is challenging, but I also find that enjoyable too, because it kind of shows that we're working as a group together to achieve the best thing for RCD.
Right. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. And so we have our last question here, just before we wrap up the interview. And it is, what is your vision for the RCD and the board of directors? Maybe that could be in the long term, or during the interview, or in the past.
Sure. So I think for all of us, we can somewhat relate to what does the future bring us, and obviously that's hard. So especially over this, what has it been, year and a half, 2 years almost, of the pandemic, right? Which not sure about our audience, but that for sure was not something that I ever foresaw, right? Especially on a world scale like it has been. So so vision-wise, there's lots of exciting things that are going to happen into the future, such as currently RCD's home. It's a temporary home. It is at the Lansdowne Mall, but down the road, that our newer home, our future home, will be in a place that actually, as far as I know, I haven't driven by lately, but as far as I know, they hadn't started building yet. So at some point, they're going to build us a new home, on 3 Road, and we'll move to that. So I guess my vision is that, in that transition, that we are able to do that well, efficiently, effectively, without any due hardship to us as a group. And that's a challenge, another challenge in that. And then overall, it's just the longevity. Can't even say that word today. Looking out and making sure as a group that there's a place for us to meet, to talk, to offer, have programs that we can offer to each other, so that we can grow. So I think that's, for me, one, somewhat of a vision that I have.
Okay, perfect. I hope the start of the pandemic just dies down soon, and hopefully the future looks bright for RCD.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Mark, for joining us. And
no, thank you, Zurich.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in as well. And don't forget to tune into the other videos and to like and subscribe. And we're going to be wrapping it up here. All right, Mark, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.